The story of a Hollywood scandal rarely begins with silence, but in this case, silence was the spark. When the cameras stopped rolling on, It Ends With Us, whispers began to travel across the set. Crew members exchanged looks, small fragments of conversations were shared in corners, and by the time the first tabloid caught wind of it, the storm had already formed. At the center of it all stood two names that carried weight: Justin Baldoni, the actor turned director, and Blake Lively, one of the industry's most visible stars. What should have been a celebrated adaptation of a best-selling novel slowly twisted into something darker. Blake Lively, known for her professionalism, was the first to make her dissatisfaction clear. Her remarks didn't come in a sudden explosion. They came through careful, deliberate words. She spoke about feeling abandoned on set, about how support was lacking when she needed it, and about how the leadership failed to create an environment where actors felt secure. The entertainment press picked up the statements, but for a few days it seemed like one of those typical Hollywood disputes, the kind that surfaces and fades. Then came Isabela Ferrer. Isabela was not the lead actress, nor was she someone the audience recognized instantly. She was a rising name, gaining traction, working her way into bigger roles. But she stepped forward and said something that no one could ignore. Her claim was not about negligence. It was about inappropriate behavior. Her words didn't just echo Blake's concerns, they magnified them. Suddenly the story was no longer about frustration on set. It became about power, respect, and the hidden battles that play out behind the glamour. The public didn't hesitate to pick sides. Fans of Blake voiced support, pointing to her track record and professionalism. Others defended Justin, arguing that his reputation didn't fit the accusations. But in the middle of it all was Isabela Ferrer, a woman whose voice carried a weight that couldn't be dismissed as rumor. She claimed there were moments when the lines between professionalism and misconduct blurred, and those claims made headlines across America. News outlets scrambled for details. Paparazzi crowded outside restaurants where Blake was seen dining. Justin's home in Los Angeles became a watchpoint for reporters. Isabela, once barely recognized in the press, suddenly found herself with microphones in her face and cameras waiting at the airport when she traveled. It wasn't just gossip anymore. Lawyers became involved. Statements were drafted. Social media boiled with hashtags that turned into movements overnight. And at the heart of it all, Hollywood faced a question it has been forced to confront many times before. What happens when those with influence are accused of misusing it? This was not the kind of promotional buzz any studio wanted. It Ends With Us had been set up to be a box office hit, with Blake as the star and Justin not only directing but acting as well. The chemistry on screen was supposed to be the selling point. Now the film was associated with words like scandal and inappropriate. The silence that began on set had turned into thunder, and America was listening. The roots of the conflict went deeper than most people realized. To understand how the scandal escalated, you had to go back to the way the production was set up. Justin Baldoni was not just another actor stepping into the role of director. He was wearing multiple hats: producer, director, and lead male star. That level of control can be powerful, but it also creates tension when things don't run smoothly. Blake Lively joined the project with her usual professionalism, but soon she grew frustrated with how scenes were handled. Reports surfaced that she felt unsupported, particularly in emotionally heavy moments where she expected the director's guidance. Instead, she described feeling isolated, as if she had to manage the weight of the character on her own. At first, most people assumed it was a clash of creative visions. That happens often in Hollywood. But then, in a carefully worded interview, Blake hinted that there was more. She said the set lacked a sense of responsibility. Those words became fuel for speculation. What did she mean exactly? Who was responsible? Enter Isabela Ferrer. Young, talented, and still finding her way in the industry, she had every reason to stay quiet. But she didn't. She described her experience as unsettling, pointing to instances when professional boundaries weren't respected. She did not provide graphic details, but the implication was strong enough to ignite a firestorm. Her voice turned the story from a creative dispute into a matter of ethics and conduct. Social media became the battlefield. Hashtags demanding accountability trended within hours. Fans argued fiercely online, some defending Justin, others praising Blake and Isabela for speaking out. The media dissected every word. Old interviews of Justin were replayed, searching for hints of arrogance or red flags. Paparazzi photos of Blake and Isabela together were suddenly framed as evidence of solidarity. And while this was happening, Justin released a short statement denying any wrongdoing. He said he respected his colleagues, valued professionalism, and was shocked by the allegations. But the denial didn't end the discussion. It only widened it. Late-night hosts cracked jokes. Podcasts analyzed power dynamics in Hollywood. Columnists asked why it always took multiple women speaking out before anyone listened. The studio, caught in the middle, faced mounting pressure. Should they defend their director, or should they protect the reputation of their star actress? Their silence said everything. They knew whatever decision they made could decide the financial fate of the film. And through all of this, one fact stood out. The audience wasn't talking about It Ends With Us as a romantic drama anymore. They were talking about it as the latest Hollywood scandal. By the third week of coverage, the scandal had become unavoidable. Entertainment networks devoted entire segments to it. Morning shows brought on legal experts to discuss potential consequences. Justin Baldoni's name, once associated with uplifting roles and inspiring projects, was now linked to controversy. Isabela Ferrer gave her first detailed interview. She spoke calmly, without theatrics, explaining that her decision to come forward wasn't about attention, but about principle. When lines are crossed, she said, you either speak up or you accept it. And I couldn't accept it. Her statement hit hard. Viewers praised her courage. Critics questioned her timing. But one thing was certain. She could no longer be ignored. Blake Lively stayed measured in her words, but she didn't walk back her earlier remarks. She emphasized that Hollywood had a responsibility to create safe spaces, not just glamorous ones. Fans saw her as a seasoned star backing up a younger actress, a rare show of solidarity in an industry often divided by ego. Justin, meanwhile, tried to defend himself with a series of interviews. He insisted the accusations were exaggerated and insisted he had always conducted himself with respect. His calm tone contrasted sharply with the storm swirling around him. But some of his answers felt rehearsed, and the public wasn't entirely convinced. The tension reached a breaking point when lawyers entered the picture. Legal teams for both sides began exchanging words through the press. Suddenly, terms like formal complaint, workplace misconduct, and investigation dominated headlines. The story shifted from gossip to something official. Hollywood insiders began whispering that the film's release could be delayed. The marketing campaign stalled. Trailers that were supposed to flood social media disappeared. Instead, journalists filled the gap with speculation. Fans were divided. Some pledged to boycott the film. Others argued that allegations shouldn't destroy years of work without evidence. The debate reflected a bigger question. How does Hollywood handle accountability when millions of dollars are at stake? And in the middle of it all was Isabela Ferrer, a name that, just months before, few outside industry circles knew. Now she had become the voice of resistance against silence in Hollywood. The climax of the scandal came with a press conference. Isabela Ferrer, flanked by her legal team, stood in front of cameras and spoke with unwavering confidence. She outlined her claims, emphasizing respect and boundaries, without sensationalizing the details. Her words were firm but measured, the kind of statement that carried weight without theatrics. The room was silent as she spoke. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras flashed, and within minutes her words were trending worldwide. Headlines didn't just report her statements. They framed her as the latest symbol of courage in an industry still reckoning with power dynamics. Justin Baldoni responded almost immediately. In his own press appearance, he looked tired, strained, but determined. He denied all allegations again, stating he had been unfairly targeted. His voice carried frustration, not just at the claims, but at the way the narrative had spiraled beyond his control. Blake Lively, though not directly at the center of the allegations, gave her most pointed comment yet. She stated, "Every set should be a place where people feel valued and safe. That's not negotiable." Her words were interpreted as indirect support for Isabela, though she never named Justin directly. The entertainment world exploded. Podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media accounts debated every angle. Some said Isabela was brave. Others said Justin was being unfairly crucified. A few even questioned Blake's motives, suggesting she was protecting her image. But regardless of the opinions, no one could deny the magnitude of the story. The climax wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about the industry being forced to confront the cracks in its own foundation. Hollywood could no longer pretend that misconduct was rare or isolated. This scandal was proof that even in 2025, with movements pushing for change, the industry still had shadows that needed exposing. In the aftermath, nothing returned to normal. The film's release was officially postponed. The studio issued a statement about prioritizing safety and integrity, but behind closed doors, insiders admitted they feared the project was permanently damaged. Isabela Ferrer, once a rising star, became a household name. She was invited on talk shows, praised for her courage, and cast in new projects that highlighted her resilience. She insisted she never wanted fame from this, only change. Yet fame came anyway. Blake Lively's reputation remained strong. Fans saw her as a veteran who stood her ground and supported a younger actress. Her image as a Hollywood professional grew even stronger, proving that her words carried influence beyond the screen. Justin Baldoni's career took the hardest hit. Whether or not the allegations would ever be proven in court, the public perception was already shaped. Roles he had been negotiating quietly disappeared. His production company faced scrutiny. For a man once celebrated as a multi-talented figure in Hollywood, the fall was swift and brutal. The scandal became a case study for Hollywood. Universities discussed it in media ethics classes. Industry insiders debated how contracts and set environments should be restructured. And for the public, it was another reminder that behind the glamour, Hollywood is still a workplace, with all the flaws and pressures any workplace has, amplified by fame and money. The final question wasn't about one man or one movie. It was about the culture of silence, and whether this scandal would finally break it. As one columnist wrote, "The names may change, the movies may change, but the question remains the same. Who holds power, and how do they use it?" And that is why the story of Isabela Ferrer and Justin Baldoni will not fade quickly. It's no longer just about a film. It's about Hollywood itself.